This is Midweek Politics with Dave Pakman.
Hey, welcome back to Midweek Politics. David Pakman here. Hey, the other day I tried to be a small business supporter, Lewis. You know that, and you do as well. Anytime that I can go to a local business here in Massachusetts, if I need to buy something or a service, I try to do it, right? I mean, you can attest to that. I've mentioned it to you.
Yes.
The other day, I needed a new light bulb for something. And I said, you know what? There's plenty of places I could get it. I'm going to go to the local hardware store. I'm not going to name the hardware store because, we have many listeners here in our local area, and I don't want to open up a can of worms. But I went to a local hardware store, bought the bulb, went home. Okay, didn't work. Decided to go back, and I say, hey, this bulb didn't work. I need to get a different one. And the guy running the register says to me, well, I don't know if you can return that. I need to talk to my boss about that because it's open. And I said, okay, I'm sure he just doesn't know their own return policy. It says very clearly, returns within 30 days with a receipt, except for smoke detectors. Very clearly written. Makes sense so far, right?
Right.
Manager comes over, he looks at it. It was one of these packages that's almost impossible to open with your bare hands. It's like the plastic that you need scissors to open. That you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah, I hate those.
So obviously, I had opened it the only way that you can, which is by cutting it. And the guy looks at it and he says, I can't take that back. That package has been destroyed. And I say, oh, where does it say in your return policy that you don't take bulbs back? And he says, we have a return policy, but the packaging is completely destroyed. How else could I have opened it? I ask him. I mean, it says right here, returns within 30 days with a receipt. It's been 30 minutes, except for on smoke detectors. If they're open, you can't return them. Hold on a second, he says, walks into the back, gets very awkward, line is waiting behind me. Guy comes back and he says, you know what? You're all set. You can return it. Tosses the bulb into the trash in front of me, indicating you can return it, but we're just throwing it out. We're losing money. Thanks to you, we're losing money. Mm-hmm. I'm going out of my way. Well, this hardware store is not the closest to where I live. It's certainly not going to be the one selling the bulbs for the cheapest. And I'm going out of my way to support them. And they can't even put together a reasonable return policy. They have to guilt the customers if they have to return something. I mean, I could have gone to Home Depot. I could go to Lowe's. I could go to anywhere. Walmart.
Right.
Target if I wanted to support homophobia. I could go anywhere for the light bulb. I choose to go to the small business, and they make it difficult for me to buy stuff. What, are you experiencing this?
I have not experienced this, but I understand it. Okay, well, first of all, I doubt it's crossing that guy's mind that, oh, well, this is a person who's supporting a small business. Maybe I should just help him out.
Right. It's not even
he's
a
helping
question.
me out, I help him out.
It's not a question of helping. I mean,
right.
In many cases, some of these small businesses, I get it. They can't absorb the cost of that $10 light bulb
right.
the same way that Home Depot can or Walmart could. I get that. But you've got to make it at least somewhat convenient and even remotely pleasurable to shop at the small business.
Right. You have to assume if you act like that, there's a good chance that person may not return to the store. So in the long run, you're probably just hurting yourself.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think next time I'll go to the place I know I can return it. Speaking of small businesses, we've set up a new phone line here in the studio, and we've been getting phone calls constantly from telemarketers since we set it up. The other day, we happened to get a call from a telemarketer, and I said, you know what, Lewis, we're set up to record. We were waiting for an interview. Let's just record it. And here's what happened. Let me play it for you. Hello?
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 Yes, hi. My name's calling with Visa MasterCard Merchant Services. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Well, that's good. That's good. The reason I called is to see if your business is currently accepting debit and credit cards as a form of payment.
We are not currently doing that now.
Okay, because Visa MasterCard has pre-approved your business to start accepting debit and credit cards.
Oh, how did you get our information?
Well, we actually get it from the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, we're not members of any Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, well, did you just get a new telephone listing then?
Yes, we just got a new phone line.
Then that's what it is. We got it. Then that's how we got your company information.
So when you said you got it from the Chamber, that wasn't true, right?
Well, no, we do get information from the Chamber of Commerce as well.
But how would the Chamber have our number if we're not members?
Look, if you want to argue, you do that with your wife. There's one of several ways we can get the information.
I'm sorry, what was your name? All right, and then he hung up on me, clearly knowing, Lewis, that at that point he probably should just get off the phone before I call back and say, hey, this is how this guy's calling people.
That was great.
So then I started thinking, you know how you always get those emails about, I have a $2 million inheritance for you, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what? I'm going to email one of these guys and tell him I'm interested. I'm interested in the inheritance from, I think he said from Henry Pakman he had for me. Give me a call. Give me a call at the studio. And the guy just couldn't get it together to call when I was actually here. But he started leaving me voicemails. This guy is persistent. Take a listen.
Hello, David Pakman. This is David Royding. I'm calling from England. Tried to send you several emails, but keep coming back. I don't know why. You can reach me on +44.
Okay, and you can barely understand what the guy's saying, and then he gives his phone number, which I won't give. Next day, same thing, calls me again.
Hello, David Pakman. This is David Royding. I sent you an email, and I want you to let me know what time I should call you so that we can discuss more. You have a great day, and bye.
Right. We need to discuss the entire deal, Lewis. I think I'm going to give up on this one because it's too complicated. You can't. Number one, you can't even hear a word the guy's saying.
Right.
He can't call me when I tell him to call me. If we're going to try to bait one of these internet scammers, he's got to at least call me on time,
Yeah, it seems like too much of a hassle.
I think you're absolutely
Although
right.
I'm sure it would be hilarious if we actually recorded a phone call with him.
We'll try. We'll try. New poll on the website. Which Tea Party candidate has the best shot at winning? Is it Sharon Angle? Is it Christine O'Donnell? Carl Palladino? Rand Paul? Art Robinson? Joe Miller? Log on and tell us. MidweekPolitics.com. Midweek Politics is made possible in part by the Daily Hampshire Gazette and GazetteNet.com, connecting our communities with local news and information. By DIF Design, specializing in custom business websites at DIFdesign.com. To find out more about underwriting Midweek Politics, visit midweekpolitics.com.